Welcome to LinkedUp, Breaking Boundaries in Education, a podcast that focuses on what is happening in education today, connecting everyone to the movers and shakers that are breaking boundaries in the education arena.
Hello, this is Jamie and Jerri from LinkedUp, Breaking Boundaries in Education. We have a podcast today with a motivational speaker that is different, I think, than anyone I've ever seen come into schools. And it's about a fighter's mindset, and I'm super intrigued, Jerri.
Yes. Today, our guest is called the Spaniard, Charlie Spaniard.
Mhm.
And he goes by the Spaniard most of the time. He's going to talk to us today about being a UFC fighter. And now he is going out and talking to kids in schools and motivating them. So we're really excited to hear how this all progressed and to hear from the Spaniard. So welcome. We are so happy to have you on the LinkedUp podcast.
It's my pleasure to be here. We've been talking behind the scenes, and it's been very enjoyable.
Right.
So I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, well, we are happy to have you here. We're wondering, could you start out by sharing a little bit of your background and the journey that led you to be known as the Spaniard?
Spaniard.
Yeah. So I grew up in rural, small town Pennsylvania, between Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, basically. And I grew up, got into the sport of wrestling at a young age. As my hoodie kind of has on here, I saw the movie Rocky when I was a little kid, and I just fell in love with it. The training, the eye of the tiger, the montages, the sweat, the muscles, all that stuff. And so I got into the sport of wrestling and just lived that life. It was a thing that I had a love for, a thing that I found success at, and those two things kind of married. And it was an up and down, but super. It was an up and down journey, but I learned a ton about myself, about life. And then I took wrestling through high school into college, wrestled Division I, and became a Spanish teacher after that. And so about a year and a half into my teaching, I started to get a little bit restless because I was living a normal life, and it was, 9 to 5 teaching the day to day. And I don't know that I was built for that. And around that time, and this is 2004, 5, 6, around 2004, 2005, there was a reality show that came out on Spike TV. It's called Pros versus Joes. And in my head, I was thinking, all right, I'm getting kind of bored here. I don't know if I want to do this. That show comes out on a whim. I applied for it. I get cast on the show. I go out to California. I win the show. I win $20,000 and a new car. And I come home, I'm teaching. Around that same time, the UFC is gaining popularity. A couple friends of mine from college start fighting, and I think I want to do that. And
Wow.
so even though I still say I am, as in my current present, not a fighter. I am, because I had 27 pro fights. I don't think of myself that way. I was a person with a goal and a skill set, and that set off the fighting career. And then I imagine we'll get to it, but post-fighting is when I leaned into writing books and speaking for a living.
Right.
That's fascinating. I love that. I mean, I think I know my girls are athletes, and it is a special mindset that takes place when you have that. So I think your journey is just amazing. I love that. And I've heard of that show before, and I'm going to go back and find that season.
Yeah, the episodes, if anyone's interested, it's season 1, episodes 9 and 10. They're like
Okay.
$2 on Amazon. And it's a fun watch.
I'll watch. That's so fun. Yeah, I love it. My husband was a wrestling coach, so he'll love it too.
Very cool. Where are you based out of? What state?
I'm in New Jersey.
Yeah, we probably know the same people. My husband, your
yeah.
husband and me probably know the same people.
Community.
Well,
That's
I'm dying to know, what kind of car did you win?
It was at that time. This is 2000. So I filmed in December of 2005. It aired in May of 2006. So I don't know if you remember, but back then there was a car. It was called the Dodge Caliber, and it had the fancy cooler up front, like the ads for it. The TV commercials had this really cool cooler up front. So it was an all-wheel drive, chrome wheels. It was perfect for where I was in my life. Training. I was living in Pennsylvania, commuting to New Jersey to train, snow, etc. So it was a nice fit.
That's cool. So cool. You were a Spanish teacher, and now you're taking your passion of wrestling and taking your expertise in education, and you put them together. So tell us how all that happened and how you bring that to life.
Yeah. So I have the teaching background, and that's a huge asset. Teaching and
Right.
coaching when you're interacting with kids,
Right.
it's when you're doing it, it's obvious you're doing it. You're coaching, you're interacting with students. From a speaker's perspective, standing on stages, some like classroom management, being able to read the audience, those are kind of intuitive in being a teacher. And so I took the hook. That is what it is. I took the hook of my UFC fighting background, combined with my skills as a presenter, as a speaker, as an educator,
Mhm.
and I bring that to schools. And it's a metaphor. I say and I repeat, life's a fight. It really is. Whether you're,
Yeah.
you ladies or myself, we battle fear, we battle negativity, we battle self doubt, we battle peer pressure, we battle posting on Instagram. Imagine you're a kid, you post on Instagram, you're
Yeah.
so nervous. What are they going to say about me? That all that stuff is just inner turmoil. That's inner fight. And so I use the metaphor of life's a fight, and I bring it to the stage, and it's a neat. I do approximately 45-minute presentations, and from there, I've co-authored several young reader books. I have 2 student podcasts. So that's another thing, that thinking as a teacher, I'm thinking, all right, well, how do I
Right.
keep this going? How do I keep them
Yeah.
engaged? What are the discussion prompts? So I really create my resources from a teaching mindset as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. So,
As you
so
talk,
yes, not only your education background experience, but also the fighting, and the third is your presentation skills. So it's that triple threat that you are for sure. That triple threat.
Yeah, and I've done this long enough to become comfortable with who I am and what I offer. And there still are, I say it almost every presentation. I'll say, I'm a professional fighter. The first thing you're taught in school, one is like, don't fight. So what the heck is this guy
Yeah.
doing here? I
Right.
address
Right.
that right off the bat.
I'm going to
And
ask
and
that. Yeah.
I have lost opportunities where they say,
Mm,
we're just not doing it because you're a fighter. Okay,
right.
that's fine.
Right.
Uh, it is what it is. I'm not changing my story. I can't change my
Right.
story.
No, you
And
can't.
if you think about it, it is a perfect metaphor for life. And
Yeah.
yes.
with young people today, mental health, I can't tell
Mhm.
you how many times I've heard, a lack of ability to deal with tough stuff, or resilience is it's not a buzzword. It is reality, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
There's so many things being thrown at students that, yeah, it's a fight. Like, it's a fight. And I'm going to help you fight that fight.
It's about coping skills.
Yeah.
Yes.
And what are some of the things that you share with students to help them in whatever fight they're involved in?
Yeah, so I use my personal story. So my presentation is my personal story, and I go through the arc of my life, essentially. Little boy, big dreams, working hard. Very early in the presentation, this is one of the major lessons, is the reality of winning and losing. That you're going to win sometimes, you're going to lose sometimes, and just the awareness that, hey, it's not over. When you lose, it's not over. You can get back up. You do get back up, and there's visuals that paint this picture along the way. Um, and then that progresses into kind of changing directions in my life. And then from that point, being able to have stories, real stories that kids can Google, kids can look up, of
Mm.
getting knocked out cold on television, being attacked ruthlessly on social media in articles telling me I'm terrible. This is stuff that a student is thinking, I'm the only one. This is terrible. I can't do this.
Mm.
And then when I show up there, no, it happens, right? And the
Mhm.
dichotomy of super tough guy fighter with, oh, he just said he cried whenever people attacked him on Twitter.
Mm.
It opens kids up.
Yeah.
It's
Right.
a reciprocity, a vulnerability that it goes a long way.
Absolutely. Mental health, it really is so important. I think it is a struggle. We've had a couple podcasts on this for athletes. There's such a pressure on them, and not just athletes, everyone, right? But having someone like you from that area, from sorry, let's cut that out, Marvin, from that realm of being an athlete. saying, the tough guy, right? And being able to say, like, we have to support our mental health and we have to do it in these ways is so
Yeah.
important. It's so important. It really is.
Yeah, a couple of sayings that stick with me, and I feel like first time I heard, they're common in books and psychology, et cetera. But I feel like Frankie Edgar, who is a fighter from Jersey, UFC fighter, Hall of Famer, big mentor of mine, and two things that I feel like he said to me directly, or I saw on his post, is how you do one thing is how you do everything,
Mm.
and then don't talk about it, be
Mm.
about it. So
I like that.
I'm not just talking about getting knocked down and getting back up. I lived it and I still live it. And I'm very open with business, like creating my business in the back end of it, how hard it is, right? How being
Sure.
told no 99% of the time, how
Yeah.
much that stinks.
Yeah.
So I really do try to, I do embody what I talk about. I don't just talk about.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can you share a story from a fight that maybe inspired you or made you think differently after you were involved in that situation?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you a pre-fight story, and then
Okay.
another fight story. When I was teaching Spanish, I was teaching junior and senior high Spanish, and at first I was comfortable. I was, right where I wanted to be. I was, wrestling is very tough. Jamie, as you know, with your husband coaching it, it's like, you cut weight all the time. It's discipline.
Yeah.
You get up early. It's during the winter. It's so hard. You're physically
Right.
demanding, emotionally up and down. And I was done. And then I saw, after about a year and a half, I got bored and I thought, holy cow, I missed that. Like, why would I miss that stuff?
Mm.
But I did. It was
Right.
the core of me. And then I saw Frankie sign to fight in the UFC, and that triggered something. And so I went home and I called my best friend at the time and I said, hey, conversation. And I said, you know what, Dave, one day I'm going to fight in the UFC. And this is like a lesson that I tell students that completely opened my mind up. His response to me was, I bet you will, because you do everything you say you're going to do.
Mm.
And I never thought of myself in that way. I
Oh, that's
never in a zillion years thought Charlie Brenneman is someone who does what he says he's going to do. And I thought, whoa, like he thought that about me.
Right.
And it really opened up my mind to like, whoa, I can do this. And then I tell that to students all the time. And I'd say both ways, like, you don't realize the belief that you can give someone.
Yeah.
Right. And then
Yeah.
the other way, once you start believing, it's like a whole new world will open up for you. So that was a huge learning point,
Love that.
learning lesson, pre-fighting.
Right.
Love
A lot
that.
of times other people see things in you
Mm.
before you do, I think.
100%.
Yeah.
Yes. And
Yeah.
it really does inspire you and move you forward towards greater things. That's a great story.
Absolutely.
Love it.
Yes.
Love it.
So now you were teaching and fighting at the same time? Help
Well,
us
it was like
timeline all correct.
very short
Yeah.
crossover there. So
Okay.
I taught from 04 to 07.
Uh-huh.
My first professional fight was in July of 07. So I had finished teaching, fought professionally, but I had 5 amateur fights while I was teaching Spanish. So there was a little bit of a crossover. And then I tell this story, when I told my mom, I'm very close to we have a very close family, but when I told my mom I was going to leave teaching to fight professionally, I don't think she knew what the UFC was. And her only response was, okay, but you have to get a master's degree. And so I jokingly say, like, I backed out of the room on eggshells because I thought she has no idea what I'm doing.
Yeah, right.
And so I want to like get that deal sealed before she changes her mind.
Yes.
Great. That's great.
Oh, and then now you're out speaking, motivationally speaking, and you also have a couple of podcasts as well.
Yeah. And, I would assume you ladies know, and maybe you don't, but it's very hard to podcast, right? It's doing podcasts to me, it comes naturally. I enjoy it very much, but getting people to listen to your podcast is
Yeah.
very difficult.
Right.
So I create a lot of content, and, I do have listeners and I do have readers, but it's not in the masses. It is a fight to acquire readers
It's
and
a fight.
acquire
Yeah.
listeners. Yeah, exactly. But I had 2 student podcasts. One is called Spaniard School and one is called Read with a Fighter. And Spaniard School teaches, it's very similar theme to my my assembly program. We're talking about choices. We're talking about goals. We're talking about adversity. We're talking about how you treat other people, life lessons really.
Right.
And Read with a Fighter, it's a very new podcast where I actually read, it's basically audiobooks of my books.
Oh, cool.
So yeah. So I try to give kids no excuse to not read. I make it as easy as
Yeah.
possible.
I love that. So what are your books about then?
So I have 5 young reader books. One of them is a young reader version of my autobiography. It's called Driven, My Unlikely Journey from Classroom to Cage. And I took the original and I condensed it. I added discussion questions at the end. And then the others, the series, it's a fiction-based series, is called Days of Spaniard. And each one has a theme. The first one is about winning and losing. Second one's about bullying. Third one is about brain health, physical and mental brain health. And the fourth one is about handling adversity. And the adversities I use in that book are vaping, screen addiction, stress and anxiety, and bullying, because those are some of the most common challenges that I've seen across the country.
Absolutely.
And those books, the Days of Spaniard book, they're very easy reads. And again, the reason I create all of these young reader resources, the purpose is for them to be used as tools to create conversation, camaraderie, discussion, relationships.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, I love that. That's fantastic. And I assume you have these in both English and Spanish, since you were a Spanish teacher.
No, not in Spanish.
I know.
Creating a book in English is hard enough. Trust me.
That's true. You're right. You're right.
When I have a team,
Yeah.
that's a possibility.
Then you can get that done. Right.
Now with
Yes,
AI, it
exactly.
shouldn't be so difficult. You can
You're
leverage.
not kidding,
Yeah.
Jamie. That's actually a great.
Yeah. So you
Yes.
can actually have that done tomorrow, Spaniard. So
All right, check, done.
yeah, exactly. Get that done. So,
So how do you stay motivated and focused on all of these areas yourself so that you can stay up to help others?
Yeah, so I get asked that question a lot, and I'm as honest as I can be on social media, right? So you know, uh, suicide, mental health, stress, anxiety for young people, for all of us really, but it's really boosted since cell phones and since social media. And so I deal with that stuff just like the average person deals with it. I'm stressed. I had 2 small kids. My wife and I are, we have small kids and we're trying to make this all work. So I get stressed and I get worried and I get anxious and just like everyone else. I think the most vital thing, and this comes from fighting and this comes from wrestling, is that regardless of how I feel, regardless of my emotions, I never fall off the wagon when it comes to taking care of myself. So I never do not exercise. I never fall off the bandwagon with my nutrition. I never fall off the bandwagon with sleep. It's non-negotiable. I'll give you 2 examples. So fall of 2019, what ended up happening, my mom was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease, which very nearly took her life. And at the same time, my brother was diagnosed with a glioblastoma brain tumor. And those are like life-altering things. But it was like, it just didn't matter, because at the hotel, in the family home, wherever I could, the workouts were getting done, the food was getting taken care of. Like, it didn't matter. And that idea, not everyone has the discipline to do that.
Right.
But if you're looking for a way to stay on the path with everything else, those are a couple areas that are just non-negotiables in my life.
Yeah,
And
that
what do you say to yourself to stay on that path?
You know what? I'm going to give you a great quote that I just heard yesterday from Arnold Schwarzenegger. And I don't know what interview this was in, but I'll reference his quote and then riff on it a bit. But he said, every morning before you allow yourself to think, get your hour of training in.
Yeah.
Okay. So it doesn't matter. Like, in my head, I just say, shut up, Charlie, do it. It just doesn't matter. So if you tell yourself, no excuses, no one. So in recovery,
it's hard. But it is so true. My husband gets up at 4. He gets to the gym by 5, and he's a superintendent. He's at school by 7:30, and that's what he does. Okay, he goes to the gym on Saturday, and then Sunday he does take off.
Yeah, he's a human, right?
Yeah.
He's not superhuman. He's a human. I'm a human. But if you just make that decision, I'm going to say it's from recovery, but maybe it's not, but no one's coming to save you.
Right.
Like with addiction, with recovery, it is. And I have friends battling it now. I have friends who have recovered and are sober. Like it's you,
Yeah.
no
Right.
excuses, nothing. It's you. And when you just swallow that pill and believe it, then you're on that bandwagon.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm sure you feel good because you stay on that.
Yes.
Yes.
Which is huge.
Right.
And there's I read it in a book a long time ago, but sometimes your emotions will lead your actions. You're feeling really good. You're feeling awesome. So you go work out. And then sometimes your actions will lead your emotions. You feel like garbage. You go work out. The good emotions follow. So it's
Yes.
a jockeying between those
Yeah.
things.
Yeah. It's a cycle. It is
Yes, for
a
sure.
cycle. Yes. So
It-
what projects are you working on now?
Well, we just finished our fourth Days of Spaniard book, the one about handling adversity. It's called The Collector Card. So we just finished that one. And I'm currently, I'm reading a business book. It's called 10X is Easier Than 2X. And 2024 for me it's not necessarily about scaling my business, but it's about becoming more efficient at my speaking business. So I can do what I do best, which is speak on stages and create content and worry less about responding to emails and doing the day-to-day setting up of appointments and follow-ups, et cetera. So that's a project, is that organizing the business side of what I do. And then another thing that we're doing is I speak in schools all across the country, and I have learned that budget is like the Wild West. There are small schools in rural towns that have unlimited budget, and there are wealthy schools in super wealthy areas that have no budget at all, right? I have not found a consistency. And so we are working on trying to find out how foundations work for funding and or corporate funding. So if a school has trouble with budget, I can say, hey, we have access to funds. So
Right.
those are two main areas that we're looking to build on this year.
Very good. So when you go into the schools, do you bring your books with you as well so that kids can
Well,
read afterwards?
it kind of depends on location. So if I'm flying across the country, it's very hard to bring the books. I definitely have a copy of each book to show them and let them know they
Right.
exist. What I'm trying to do more, and I probably had three or four schools who have done this, who have bulk purchased books. So they'll get 600, 300, 500 books for their students, which is
Oh, yeah.
it's like music to my ears because I love
Yes.
reading. I love books. So
I love that. Yeah. I
That's
love that a
great.
lot. But
yeah, I
because
was going to ask where your husband is superintendent.
well, in Monmouth County, they do a wellness symposium, and
Yeah.
Alicia DiLorenzo, who we've had on the podcast, has been in that. So I think this is right up your alley. So I'll
Yeah.
talk about that. But I think, but that's it's such an important thing. It's called a wellness symposium, and it's not just for school leaders. It's not just for students. It's not just for teachers, but it's for community. It's for parents as well, and it's so
that.
important because it's just like you're talking about. It's a community effort. Everyone needs to support each other and be aware of the fact that wellness is a journey, and we need to. It needs to come from within. We need to do it for ourselves, and it needs to be not this taboo thing, but instead, I mean, right? The brain is a muscle, so we work out our muscles. We have to also do that for our brain health as well.
The magic or the secret or whatever to that is that it takes effort. Like
Yeah.
it takes effort,
It
Yeah.
does.
for a teacher, for a parent, for a whatever to say these things to a kid. Well, you,
Yeah.
me, we have to do it. Like we have to demonstrate it. We have to model it. We have to do it. Not just, right. Don't talk about it, be about it. That's it.
Yes.
But it does take
Love
effort.
that.
It's very hard, but you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sure.
That's so true. Are there specific books or podcasts or resources that you have found have impacted your development professionally?
So Yeah, there are so many. It would be hard. I could name a few that just pop into my mind. I read, on the Spaniard show, which is my grown-up podcast, I
Right.
would do book summaries, and I've done probably 230 book summaries.
Oh my.
And so there's like so many on my website reading list page. But I remember Shoe Dog, the Nike story, the story of Nike, and I remember that one sticking out. Um, Atomic Habits is like an awesome book that's super,
Yeah.
um, those are just two of, honestly, goodness, so many. But the business books, like the one I'm reading right now, I read a wide variety of books because I just like a workout, little by little by little, they form you.
Right. You really have quite a career trajectory. And
Yeah.
and interesting to hear the story about how you have put this all together because it's not a common one that we hear in schools.
It's a little bit different. I have a friend, a fighting friend, who says, "Charlie, you are very successful at never having to work." And it's like, that's not true. I don't have a traditional job,
Not
right?
right.
But
Right.
Traditional
I keep,
job.
I keep forming what I do based on what I want and what I want to do, and help kids is what I want to do. And so I found
Sure.
a way
Yeah.
to little by little chip away at that and do it.
Exactly. It's an important mission that you have to send these important messages to kids, and bringing in your life journey to help tell that story. It's really important mission that you're doing.
Yeah.
So it's good.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate it. And Jerry, you had asked like how I stay motivated or how I keep going. That's another, like,
Yeah, sure.
the messages I get from kids, or seeing how
Oh,
kids are
sure.
hurting, or hearing of youth suicides. It just,
Drives you.
it guts me, and it drives me. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Well, if someone wanted to find you online or wanted to read one of your books, what's the best place to go to find you?
Yeah. Thank you very much. My website is charliespaniard.com.
Okay.
CharlieSpaniard.com. All my social media handles are at Charlie Spaniard, and the links to the Days of Spaniard book, Driven Young Reader, as well as my podcasts, are all hosted on my website as well.
All right.
Oh,
So what
that's
we'll
great.
do is in the show notes, we're going to put all of that as well. And then we'll also link to your book. So they're on Amazon.
Yep, they're on Amazon as well. That would be
Right.
awesome. Thank you.
So we'll link
Yes.
that too. And we're going to be doing, we've been talking about doing social media thing where we give books away. So we'll include that in there too.
I'd be happy to send some to you to give away. That would be great.
We'll purchase
Oh,
them actually.
wonderful.
ClassLink will do
Even
that.
better.
Love to
Even
buy
better.
books here at ClassLink. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining. This was great.
My pleasure, ladies. Thank you all very much.
And keep fighting the good fight.
There you go.
Quite well.
Thank you for listening. And if you would like to stay linked up, be sure to follow us on Apple and Spotify, and subscribe to us on YouTube.